We've already ran through a number of positional groups that have already made their way through the NFL Combine. And after the last episode, when we talked about the defensive backs and the tight ends, on this episode right here, we're going to talk about the running backs and the quarterbacks who stood out the most to me. Y'all know before we talk about it and break it all down, y'all already know you got to hear the music first.
Welcome to your number one spot for all NFL news and content, NFL Central.
What's going on, football fans? Welcome back into another episode of NFL Central, your number one spot for everything NFL. I almost said the team I'm rooting for. This is a place where we can root for anybody we want to root for. I root for the Bears, but I love the game of football. So I talk about the entire sport, combine related, off-season stuff that we got to get into later this week, so on and so forth. It's a number of other things, but right now we have our focus on the NFL Combine. So if you're tuned in, like what you're hearing today, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We ran through the defensive backs, we ran through the tight ends, and all those guys. Now let's talk about the running backs and the quarterbacks on today's episode. Y'all already know. I've said it the last few times. This is not to say that a guy is going to absolutely stamp himself into a respective round. It's not to go out there and say these guys are going to absolutely boost their stock. This is just a case to where we come together and I say who stood out the most to be amongst their respective group. So we're going to kick this thing off talking about the running backs first, and then we're going to end today's episode talking about the quarterbacks. So we're going to start off with the running backs first, and the first name that I have that stood out is none other than Jeremiah Love. Duh. Why would we start with any other guy? He looked good out there. The man looked like he could be a hell of a pass catcher out of the backfield. I believe he's going to be a hell of a running back in the NFL. And out of Notre Dame, taking place at the NFL Combine, Jeremiah Love clocked a 4.36 40-yard dash and showcased his elite agility and just pretty much stamping himself to pretty much being the consistent RB1. Now, there are some projections that go out there and have him going to the Saints at 8, I believe they pick, or going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I say if Jeremiah Love is the running back for either one of those teams, I think he's going to do really, really well. Tyler Shook came along with the New Orleans Saints pretty damn well last year. As the season went on, he got better and better and better. So New Orleans Saints fans, you all should be happy about him and his progression under Kellen Moore. And if he gets to big Andy Reid, Papa Red, and be able to line up behind Patrick Mahomes, that is going to do some really, really good things for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I like what he did yesterday, man. Looked really, really good catching the football, running through his drills. Looked smooth, steady, speed, power. You see it all. And, man, it was impressive. The next guy on the list is Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas, the cousin of Kansas. But, hey, he ran an official 4.33 40-yard dash, which was the fastest amongst his position group, had a 1.51 10-yard split, and had a relative athletic score of a 10, which is a perfect score. And all that, you've seen it. But you've seen the size, you've seen the ability. He looked really, really good working out amongst his peers. And the last running back I'm going to talk about today is Seth McGowan, running back out of Kentucky, 42-inch vertical, 4.49 dash, and his performance potentially boosted his stock. We shall see. Nothing is guaranteed. But as it currently stands, this is a guy that was projected to go anywhere between the third or the fourth round. So we'll see if the stock went up. I believe that the value of good running back play is on the rise, is making its return. I believe it's already here. Me personally, you look at running backs around the league, the the last few seasons. Saquon Barkley, you look at guys like Derrick Henry, you look at some of the other guys, A-Chain, he's a really good running back. You see Brees Hall, those guys, and you see what the running backs did for my Chicago Bears, DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. And a lot of teams right now, they want to run that two-headed monster out of the backfield, guys that can carry the load. You even look at Kenneth Walker in the Super Bowl, balling. So shout out to the running backs as a former running back myself. But hey, now we move on to talk about the quarterbacks. The first quarterback, and I believe he just now made his way to being the consensus QB2 in this draft. We know QB1 goes to Fernando Mendoza. QB2 now in my mind is Ty Simpson out of Alabama. Hey, the consensus grade that he earned around, at least when you look, you search through some of the webs, a lot of people are giving him a solid A. They said that he solidified himself. We'll see what happens when the draft comes around, but performed really, really well during the throwing period. And he stood out a lot to me. Only missed one throw throughout that throwing period. And hey, when you got a bunch of eyes on you and you know that this is a career move, you got to show up. And one of the hardest things to do is just to throw the ball to some randoms on any given day, because they don't know you. You don't pretty much know them. But Ty Simpson, he had himself a hell of a performance. The next guy on the list is going to be Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU. Now, he did suffer through some injuries, you know what I'm saying? So he didn't do all the workouts, but it was a bit stronger than expected. I will say that. A lot of scouts, at least for what I've been reading, they said that it was some hiccups there, but it was a solid throwing session, at least for some of the things that I read. Now, another guy that stood out to me, even though he did not have the strongest throwing period, and this is the last quarterback we'll talk about today, and that's Taylor Green out of Arkansas, the cousin of Kansas. Hey, man, and this is why I'm putting him up on the list, y'all. Even though he did not have a strong throwing period, we know some GMs and scouts fall in love with the traits. Taylor Green has a 43-inch vertical, runs a 4.36 40-yard dash, but he's 6'5". 6'5". Somebody is going to, I'm not saying he's good, that he's going to be a second rounder, he's going to be a third rounder. I'm not saying any of that. But if he rolls around in the fifth round, per se, we'll just use that round, a team who may want to take a look at him to bring him in is going to look at those measurables and say, maybe we can make him into something. It always happens. It always happens that way. He's going to be in the mix. We'll see where he falls in once April rolls around. But somebody is going to convince themselves that if he sits on their bench in their system for a year, 2 years, he could potentially take over. Somebody's going to do it based off the measurables. We'll see which team it's going to be. But hey, those are the guys that stood out amongst the running backs and the quarterbacks for me. Let me know who stood out for you. For the running backs, we had Jeremiah Love, Mike Washington Jr., and Seth McGowan. And then for the quarterbacks, we had Ty Simpson, Taylor Green, and Garrett Nussmeier, who stood out amongst their peers. I know we couldn't get to everybody. I know there's probably some other guys that stood out to you all. Drop those names in the comment box and let's talk about it. But hey, that is it for me. We got the big fellas, the old linemen. I'm going to do the wide receivers with the old linemen once those things roll around and come through. But for the meantime, in between time, that is it for me today. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode. Before you get up out of here, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I appreciate y'all. Make sure you always love football. And y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks